Love God with the fullness of your being and love your neighbor as you love yourself. This is a Jewish Jesus talking from the riches of his religious tradition, speaking the truth. The words are spoken by a lawyer who's also Jewish. Jesus identifies that, though. If you do this, you will live. Now, that nettlesome three-letter word, G-O-D, means so many different things to so many people. I know when I quit going to church, it was because that word had come to mean something that I thought the church owned and the church defined, and I could no longer believe in what I'd been able to believe when I was 6 years old, when I was 17. And so I thought, well, okay, I can't believe in God anymore. I can't go to church. I've given up on all of that a long time ago. I think those words, as the Buddha famously said about his teachings, my teachings are like a finger pointing at the moon. Please don't confuse the finger for the moon. The word God is at best a finger pointing at the light that I believe personally is the light of love and goodness and joy and celebration and creativity, of peace and harmony that is at the heart of everything that is. And when Jesus says to love that with everything that is in us and to love our neighbors as we love ourselves, to me, that you can't separate one part out of that and do away with it and think, well, I'll just do the other two. You can't just love God and your neighbor and not love yourself, because at least in my tradition, we're taught that we're made in the image and likeness of that one who is the source of life and love. And to love ourselves is to find that love and light within ourselves and to do everything we're able to live into that as it's uniquely manifest in us, and to let that shine in the world. And to do that, we have to be in connection through love with the source, and we have to be in connection through love, an active love, with the world around us that's represented by our neighbors. And I would say at this point in my life, it's important for me to remember that our neighbors are not limited to the two-leggeds. Our neighbors are the four-leggeds and the winged ones and the wiggly ones that crawl on the earth. Our neighbors are the waters and the winds and the trees. We're called to love all of that. So I can't think of a more enlivening and more fundamentally challenging invitation in my life than to do my best every day to live into that teaching. That Jesus, in engaging with the lawyer, answers the way he does. I often say when I talk about this that if a Jewish Jesus, and it's always important to remember that Jesus was Jewish, and if he were to return somehow today, there's no guarantee he would choose to be Christian. He might be absolutely horrified at what people have done in his name and called it Christian. But if a Jewish Jesus were to return into this world today as a Christian and to tell this story, I often say it probably wouldn't be the story of the Good Samaritan, but it might well be the story of the good Muslim, or the good Hindu, or the good Buddhist, or the good Sikh, or the good Jew, or the good Jain. What he is saying is, we don't own righteousness. This is God's gift to everyone. And for us to imagine that it's contained in our tradition only is probably blasphemy. You can spend a lot of time with this story wondering why the two religious authorities, the priest and the Levite, walk by on the other side of the road and ignore this person who's wounded in a ditch. You can read book after book after that about this. In the last talk he gave before he was assassinated, Martin Luther King spoke movingly about this parable. And he said, maybe the reason, and he's talking to people in the midst of the civil rights movement, in the midst of a strike for sanitation workers, where looking at the root causes of things was critically important. And trying to change the conditions at the root causes was important. He said, maybe these people were headed to create an improvement society, and they were too busy looking at the root causes to be bothered by one of the incidents along the road. He said, but I think honestly, it's because they asked the wrong question. They were asking, if I stop to help this person, what might happen to me? There might be bandits lurking in the bush, and if I stop to help him, I might end up just like him. So maybe I'd best scoot along. He said the question we need to ask is, if I don't stop to help him, what will happen to him?
So that's a great segue, Charles. I want to make sure that we have a little time for people to reflect.
Perfect.
So what is your question that you offer for each of us to reflect on?
The question I offer is, does this story, how might this story touch you in some way that might cause you, when we finish here, to think a little differently about your life and the world?